Hello everyone, Judy from Coffee, Cookies, and Books, and it's great to see you again. I am going to be bringing to you in this video my final wrap up for the month of March. So if you're interested in hearing what I have to say about this wonderful group of books, I would love it if you would stick around, and I'll see you on the other side. So great to see you again, and hopefully I have new viewers along with a bunch of returning viewers. I don't ask often, but I would really love it if you could like and subscribe to the video. I'm really making great headway to my first 500 subscribers. That's kind of my first milestone. Would really love it if you could help me out with that. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about the books that I have. So just a few basically housekeeping things. One is in March, I participated in Ramathon 4.0, and I had a selection of books, which I'm going to put up right here, that I had hoped to read in the month of March. Now, there was 25. Was not going to get to 25, but I did read a fairly large selection of them. I have put up here the ones that were on the list that I read, and I've marked them with an red circle and an X. So those ones are the ones that I've read that were on the list, and then I also read 4 additional KU books that were not on the list. So I kind of added more KU, and because I had more print books selected than I did digital. So I like to split it up. And so that was what I did. Now, the other thing that I participate in is the buzzword reading challenges, and I'll put one up on either side. So there's the buzzword reading challenge and the buzzword cover challenge. And from those, I read several that were on it, not just the 2 that were for the month of March, but I also added in a few extras, and they're up there. One of them was Caliban's War. The other one was How to Survive Your Murder, which I'm going to review today. And then there were the other 2, and I think there was one more I can't recall off the top of my head. Let's see. Bookshops and Bonedust, A Sea of Unspoken Things, Caliban's War, Death by Fire, and How to Survive Your Murder were the 5 books that I read that were on the buzzword challenges. Okay, so did great. Read what I had to read. Then I also had several books that were in my 25 must-reads for 2025, and one of them was Caliban's War, which I really wanted to read, and I did read that. And the other one that I had Bookshops and Bonedust was also on 25 for 2025, 25 must-reads for 2025. And I think the last one was House of Flame and Shadow, which was the final Crescent City, and I did read that, and we're going to review that today. So I did pretty good in all of those challenges. Now, the last challenge that I do is the 25 and 25 bingo challenge. And I will get to that at the end of the video, because at the end of the video is where I'm going to show you what I have selected from what I have read in this last batch from mid-March to the end of March. I'm going to show you the books that I have selected. There are 3 that are going to go and fill in 3 more squares on there. So pretty excited about that. I think altogether 5 squares were filled in month of March, but March was also a heavy reading month for me. So I think that's it for the intro. We can get into the books. Now, as usual, I won't be giving you my star ratings, but my star ratings will be linked below. And I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books to cover. So 8 books I read, 1 I DNF'd, which we'll do first. And of course, I go from my least favorite to my most favorite, because that's the one I usually talk about the most. Although I don't know if that's going to be the case when we get to the end today, and there will be an obvious reason why. But okay, so I think we're going to get started on these reviews. All right, so our first review, well, it's not really going to be much of a review. It was a ebook that I read called The True Queen of Dragons by Prue Miller. I'll put it up here. I DNF'd it at 40%, about 124 pages. And the reason was because it was going nowhere. If I'm being frank, I don't even recall the characters. I really don't recall. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Amelia gets rejected by her mate. He marries her sister, who's just a raging bitch, basically. And then her sister finds out that her actual mate, because she hadn't met her mate, is the king of dragons. And he rejects her because she's a raging bitch. And Amelia is actually her twin. So they look alike, but they're completely different. And she ends up working for Draco, who is the Dragon King, as a lawyer for his pack. Well, I guess he has obviously a lot of power. And so anyways, it just dragged on and on and on and on. And it was constantly this spoiled brat and this other one who's just like amazing. And I mean, I was like, yeah, no, not the story for me. I did give it a good shot. We got to 40% on it, but yeah, it didn't go any further on that. And yeah, don't much miss it. So that was it for our first book. Okay, so the next book I have is Throttled, another ebook, Throttled. I'll put them up again, always over this corner because my laptop's over here. This one was basically a Formula F1 racing romance, and the 2 main characters are Noah and Maya. Now, Maya is the sister of Noah's biggest rival, but it turns out that he ends up okay, well, at the very beginning, first chapter, they are on separate teams. What the hell is her brother's name? I'm trying to remember what her brother's name is. Santiago. Okay, so Santi and Noah are on separate teams. First chapter, they're in a race. Now, let me tell you, the racing chapters are probably the best chapters in the book. Absolutely loved her descriptions of the races. They were like fabulous. And in the very first chapter, they're in a race, and it's nose to nose, Santiago and Noah, and Santiago causes Noah to get into an accident. Now, it's not overt. I don't think he meant to do it, but, they're racers. Like, these guys are adrenaline junkies, right? So, anyway, so it ends up that they really don't like each other. And fast forward, and Santiago has signed on with the Bandini team, which is the same team that Noah is on. And he asks his sister, Maya, who is his younger sister, to come along. She's just finished university, and she is a video blogger. That's what she does. And he asks her to come along and spend the season with him because he's trying to get comfortable with the new team. So she goes. And of course, she meets Noah, and it kind of goes from there. So I think what really kind of bothered me a little bit Now, I'm going to read a little bit of my review, my written review. It says, in between all of the racing stuff and everything, so I say, so the sets, so let's set the scene. It's typical, overly predictable romance. Boy meets girl. Boy thinks he can't have girl because she's off limits, because of course she's Santiago's sister. Girl meets boy. Girl thinks she shouldn't like boy because of her brother. So, you know, kind of goes both ways. And of course, in the end, they have sex, fall in love, and that's pretty much it. Now, in between all of that, you have two fairly immature characters. Now, this was fine for Maya. She's 23, okay? And the level of immaturity I was okay with. Did not have a problem with that with her, but I did have it with Noah because he was 30. So I felt that, you know, he was just he acted like he was 23 through the book. I thought her brother acted more mature. And I think Santiago's 25 or 26. Like, he's not that old. Overall, everyone else really kind of was a bit lackluster. And the problem that I have with that is that the other characters that she's building in this book are the characters that are going to be in the next books, right? So you want to follow those characters. Now, I'll be honest that Sophie, who is the daughter of the head of one of the other teams, she's loved her. She was great. But, and I know she's in the next book, but the guy that's in the next book with him, there's nothing there. There's no connection. So I don't know if I liked that very much. Now, I have read Lauren Asher before. I read Love Redesigned by her. And I have Love Unwritten, which I'm going to, and I liked Love Redesigned. I think I liked it better than this one. Now, Love Redesigned, of course, is a newer book. So I don't know if it's because her writing has evolved a fair amount, or I know that Love Unwritten is a larger book. There's much more to it. It's a meatier. There's more development in the characters. More world building, that kind of thing, which, you know, in a romance, you don't want a ton of that, but you do want a lot because you're moving through a bunch of books with these people. Yeah, so that was kind of my biggest gripe about it. I said, would I recommend the series? Not necessarily for myself. I didn't care for the maturity level of the characters, so I don't think I'll continue on with the series. I mean, I might. You know, if I'm looking for a light read that doesn't take a lot of thought. And I know I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, I kind of look at a lot of romance that way. Romance is just a nice, comfortable read for me, especially contemporary romance. And again, I will say, loved the action sequences. Absolutely 100% love the action sequence. I mean, that was the best part of it. And it's like, I want to read it for more of the racing. No, it's kind of crazy. It's like, you know what they need? She needs, this is what I thought through the whole thing. She needs a female racer in there. A little Danica Patrick, okay? That's who we need in there. Anyways, okay, so that's enough for that one. You know, very middle of the road for me. It was right smack dab center. And I would say my least favorite book outside of the DNF that I had. And I don't really count that because I don't rate those. So, yeah. So that's it for Throttled by Lauren Asher. Okay, so our next book is Death by Fire by S.C. Muir. And I really did quite enjoy this book. Now, it is a fantasy with some romance in it, but it is not, like, if you were going to put it on a spice level, I'd probably give it like 1 spice, basically. It really was not spicy. It was more about the world. and how the two characters were affected. So basically what you have is you have a world with 4 different types of mages. There's fire and death, who kind of can sort of cancel each other out, I guess, and fire and water, which again can cancel each other out. The thing is, these mages do not live together. They have different kingdoms, and they don't typically mix. And the reason is because in their past history, they had a dual mage, which a dual mage is somebody who has 2 of these abilities. And that person was evil and went about killing a lot of people. And it was bad. And in the end, once they killed her, they separated. So, and it's been like that for hundreds of years. So anyway, so this was one thing I kind of didn't understand about the whole thing, because in my view, I didn't understand then why Mari, who is a death mage, why her father would make a deal with Zahir's father, and Zahir is a fire mage, for the 2 of them to marry. Never quite figured out why the fathers would agree to this. To me, that didn't make sense, because typically they did not mix. Now, this is what Mari's been led to believe. Now, when she gets to... So Mari lives... I'll give you a description of where Mari lives. In her environment where she lived and where she grew up, she was... I would say they lived like... they lived in huts. It was very living off the earth. They had fire, but they didn't have electricity, that sort of thing. So then she goes to the kingdom where Sahir is, and it is a city. Okay, it's urban. So the 2 things are like she's very overwhelmed by all of this because she's not used to it, like at all. But he's wonderful. So the 2 characters of Mari and Zahir, they're both lovely characters. And the author was able to give 2 of them lots of depth. What kind of fell flat a little bit for me were probably the other characters. Now, I thought that Mari and Zahir handled things pretty well. She's 21, he's 25, so they're not old. They're, they're really quite young. But because they're both royal, they are fairly mature. They understand their responsibilities and they want to live up to their responsibilities. So they agree to this marriage, and even though they don't know each other, they're both willing. So this is not a situation where they hate each other. They don't hate each other at all in this book, but they are very, I don't know how to describe it. They're very careful with how they approach each other. There is no sex between the 2 of them till anyway, I don't want to say too much. It is it's really good. Now there is a rebel faction, and the rebel faction has certain quarrels with the king, Zahir's father, and how all of that is transpires. And there is, there are the deaths of certain people. And it gets pretty brutal through certain sections of it. Now, it is, now I don't know how many books are going to be in the series. I have this one. I just purchased the second one because it just came out. This is a self-published author, and I think it's a wonderful book. I mean, I would absolutely recommend it to anybody who likes fantasy with deep characters and an interesting environment. But it's not a long book, you know, like you're not talking a book that's 600 pages. I don't remember how many, yeah, not even 400 in this. And the second book, I don't think is any longer. So it's just a nice length to me. Another one that I might compare to it would be the Veiled Kingdom. The two of them kind of sat in the same. I had different quarrels with them. I thought some parts of this were a bit slow moving, and there were some things in it, like I said, about the fact that they were forced to be married that was not really super clear to me. Didn't understand why their fathers felt the way that they did. I don't know if that's going to come out later in the next book. Who knows? But there is, so I had something. So here are some things that threw me, and I'm just going to read from my review because I think that's a little easier. So what threw me was the attempt to make the city of Braun, which is the city where Zahir is from, urban, but not really. So it's hard to explain, but they had things like refrigeration, whiskey, wine, etc. But there's no explanation about electricity. They had no transportation other than by horse. And overall, it felt like a weird setup. And then there was Mary, who lived off the land in the woods like a pioneer of the old days. So that was really a weird juxtaposition between the two worlds, right? And where she came from seemed very poor, yet her father was the king, you know? So those were just some things that I found really odd. And the thing with Braun is certain things would crop up at certain points through the story. They're naturally, like she was getting a tour and showed her the refrigeration. And I'm like, well, but how do they run that? You know, so it was a little weird that way, but overall, I definitely would recommend it, and I did highly enjoy it. So our next one, it was an ebook, put up here, The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee, which is fantasy. It's romantasy, but I would say it's a hell of a spicy book. Okay, so I felt like I was reading two separate books. You've got the basic characters are Nyla, who is the princess, and she has run away from her father, who you find out he's a dirtbag, basically. Then there's Dakra. I call him Dakra, and he's one of the rebels who rescues her. She actually ends up in the dungeon with Dakra's sister Ren, and he rescues Nyla along with her, but Nyla tries to run away from them because she doesn't really want any part of anybody, and but they take her back to the rebel compound, and so basically, she's given a choice, you know, join the rebels or die. I mean, that's basically the choice. So she decides to join the rebels, but of course, she's never been taught to fight. She's always been cloistered in her room, more or less. I mean, she's had a pretty rough life, but she's never learned how to fight back. Nothing like that. So, you know, the first half of the story is a typical fantasy story. Like I would say that if I was going to compare it to Death by Fire, it really holds up well. I actually enjoyed the first half of the story. They're attracted to each other, but then boom, all of a sudden they're having sex. And the sex scenes are spicy. So it is, the last half of the book feels really chopped up because it's like, they're having sex, they're doing something, having sex, they're doing something. And a lot of it's like her learning to fight, him teaching her, him being jealous about somebody. I mean, it was just really confusing. Now, I gave this one and Death by Fire the same rating, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I like Death by Fire better because Death by Fire flowed perfectly. Like there wasn't any break in the story. It had a very good, clean, clear, concise story. The Veiled Kingdom, it felt very broken. The end ends very abruptly, which I think is the whole point for that to lead into the next book. But like with Death by Fire, I'm going to read the next book, but I probably am not going to read the next book on the Veiled Kingdom. So technically, when I look back at how I rated them, even though overall I think that Death by Fire was a better book because size of the books are comparative and, they're both fantasy stories, but this one was just, like I don't mind sex scenes clearly because I read a lot of romance, but I would say the first half of the book was great fantasy. The second half of the book was an erotic fantasy. That's kind of how I felt about it. And, like I said, I don't know I don't know that I have much else to say. I didn't mark it down further because I'm certainly not averse to a good erotic story, which the last half of the book was. And I did like how it ended, but if I'm honest, I don't know if I'll even pick up the continuation. So that was kind of how I felt about it. And so in my mind, not the best book. All right, so now we're getting into books that I liked a little bit better. This one is a contemporary romance. It's called Poker Face by Maggie Gates. And I quite enjoyed this. I thought it was a fun story. So how the story starts out, there's Maggie, and she's the main female character, and Luca, who is the main male character. And Maggie flies to LA because she's going to compete in a baking competition. It's just like, I think it's a 2-day thing, or maybe it's 1 day. I can't remember exactly that detail, but, and it's right at the beginning. But before that, she meets this guy and in LA, and they like each other and they have a great connection. Now, there's no sex right at the beginning. So it's just, they like each other. And then she gets to the competition and he's a judge at the competition. And he is a person that she knows. So how she didn't recognize him initially in the first, that is probably the one detail that really bothered me about the book, because essentially it's like she doesn't recognize him, and how she doesn't, I don't know. Like, I know he had, he was gruff and he hadn't shaved, he had like a beard thing coming in, because I think he's Italian, so he's very dark, and he had a baseball cap on and whatever. And I'm like, but still, this is somebody who is a celebrity restaurateur and very recognizable. How did you not recognize him? So I kind of had a little bit of an issue with that, but they were fun, the two of them, because it was like they liked each other, and then she hated him. He didn't hate her. He never hated her. He liked Maggie. Okay. Then, they go home and she is like, she's a great pastry chef because that's what she does, right? She's a pastry chef. And it just so happens that back home in, I think it's South Carolina. Did I say it was South Carolina? South Carolina or Beaufort, North Carolina. And that's where she works in a restaurant there. she runs the pastry division, and their pastry part of their restaurant actually provides pastry for a lot of the local areas and everything. Like, she runs an operation out of this restaurant, but of course also provides all the pastry for the restaurant. So it's pretty amazing. And I actually really enjoyed that because I love baking. So, that hooked me right away. But she hates him because she used to work in New York and she worked in one of his restaurants, but it's never 100% clear why she hated him, like why she disliked him. So I never really kind of understood that. I think it was just because his reputation, and a lot of his reputation had to do with his PR person, and his reputation was that he was basically an asshole. So anyway, so it kind of went from there, and it was typically sort of an enemy to lovers on her end, but he was a golden retriever right from the get-go, and he liked this woman. Like, you knew he liked this woman, right? But she basically fought the whole thing. But let me tell you, I enjoyed all of the environments. I thought they were really well done. I enjoyed all of the characters. I particularly liked her and all her friends. So they have like their poker nights and they play poker. And he has to learn how to be accepted by them. And two of the guys that are part of this friends group, they're cops. So they're like, do you want me to, throw him out on his ass or whatever? Like they're right there, to protect her, which is pretty funny. There's no love interest among the group or anything like that. And so there's that. Now, so there were the few things that did mark it down for me, and the one was right at the beginning where I don't understand how she didn't recognize him. Okay. One of the other things that kind of marked it down a little bit, and I think that's because more of that's going to come out in the next book. I'll explain that in a minute. So there was the group of friends, and the one guy, Steve, he was married to Heather. They were childhood high school sweethearts. They were together forever. They grew up together. All these people grew up together, a lot of them. And Heather had cancer. And when she got back from LA, Heather was basically had very little time left to live. Now, that was very coldly dealt with. I did not get a lot of emotion from that because these people grew up together. Like, it was just very odd how it all kind of transpired. There was not a lot there, and I felt that that was a missed opportunity. Steve, who was the husband, so I guess, him and Heather hadn't been intimate for quite a long time because she had been sick with cancer for quite some time. So, and these people are not old, I think 30. You're looking at, I think they're all in around late 20s, early 30s. They're all in that age bracket. But, he'd been with Heather forever. So I felt a bit of a disconnect there for that part, which is right at the very beginning. So I'm not really giving anything away. I mean, I'm wondering if, because Steve's book is the next book, which I probably will read because I did like this one. And I liked the characters, so it's like I'm kind of a little bit invested in all of them, so I'd like to continue through with that. In the end, Luca gets his girl, finally talks her into marrying him, and it's all good. But yeah, so overall, it was a really great contemporary romance. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It was only 399 pages, so 400 pages essentially. So not super long, just nice length, and ebook. But I'm glad I got it on ebook. I've never read anything from Maggie Gates before, so as a first book from her. Thought it was a lot of fun, and I will go on to the next book in this series. I'm not exactly sure how many books are in the whole entire series. It just says Beaufort Poker Club #1. I think there's at least 4, but there could be more. Maybe. I'm trying to think of how many friends there were. Could be 6. Technically, with this book included, could be 6. But we shall see. Did enjoy it, and we'll definitely continue on. Right, on to the next book. Now, this next book, How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. And this is a book I picked up on Book Outlet. I thought it looked like it was fun. I actually didn't have a lot of expectations, but I'm going to tell you, I really liked this book. It was a fun book. I would say that it was a teenage horror slasher. So think, Scream, that kind of thing. And but it had a unique storyline to it that dealt with time shifts. And it was like the idea that Alice, who's the sister, could go back in time, perhaps save her sister. Maybe. Okay. So it's like rule number 1, never go into the corn maze alone. Rule number 2, nothing good happens on Halloween, because this is a Halloween-based book. Rule number 3, never be distracted by a hot, bad boy. Rule number 4, don't die this time. So, it's like you read that and you're thinking, how the hell did this all happen? But the shift in how the author did it was really, really interesting. And, there were a bunch of different people. So let's just say that the people that died in the beginning are not the people that died at the end. And that's all I'm going to say. Because if I tell you anything else in between, then that's telling you too much. Because honestly, it was a quick read. It was only 296 pages. It's not even a 300-page book. And twists and turns and lots of slashery stuff in it. But it was like, I said it's the kind of book that's different enough from what I normally read that it stands out as memorable, which is why I rated it like I did, because I thought it was a pretty damn good book, right? And I like thrillers and everything, but I don't read a ton of horror books. And I typically don't read teen, okay? But I do read a few. Like I am reading Naturals series and absolutely loving it, I'm hoping to fit the next one into May's, because May, I'm going to be doing something special in May. So I'm hoping to fit that one into my May reading. So in all honesty, I totally recommend this. Okay. I would say that if you just want a quick read and you want a good horror slasher and psychologically driven teen book, this is it. I can't say too much, but let me just say, like, the whole time shift thing, that nailed me right from the get-go. Completely. Thought it was amazing. Yeah. So I would 100% recommend that book. Yeah. Fabulous. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty and the ones that I definitely liked the best. So the next one is one of Brittney Sahin's books, Until You Can't. And I read it, I'll put the cover up here. I read it as an ebook. And this is one of the few books, I don't even know if she has any other book that was a standalone. Now, even though it's a standalone, it actually has characters in it that show up that are in all of our other books, which is the case. The difference with this one is that this is kind of, I think, the jump off point for the Costa Family series, which is one of her newer series, and the last book, I think, is coming out this summer. This one introduces two characters, Natalia and Ryan. Natalia is Maria's sister, and Maria is the main character in the first Costa Family book. And then Ryan is Ryan has appeared in a few books previously because he was a Navy SEAL, and I think he got injured or something like that, and he left. So anyways, now Natalia and Ryan, they grew up next door to each other. But Natalia was engaged to Ryan's younger brother. And Ryan's younger brother is a professional hockey player. So I think he plays in the NHL. Anyway, professional hockey player. And he's a selfish prick. The best description for him. And whereas Ryan is completely selfless. And that is just who he is. Now, Ryan has always liked Natalia, or told her that, but always liked him. And Natalia has secretly always cared for Ryan. So when the two of them broke up, when his brother Anthony and Natalia broke up, there was like a complete misunderstanding there. And all the families are pissed off at Ryan because they all think it's Ryan's fault. Without explaining too much, because I don't want to get too much into it, because it really is a great part of the story. Ryan is he's had a tough time. Now, I actually just remembered his injury. So his injury was a head injury. And as a result of the head injury, he was basically told that if he got hit in the head again, it would not be good. So he couldn't continue as an operator, as a SEAL team, because he was a Navy SEAL. So it was pretty sad for him. It was very hard for him to get used to that. Now, how the story starts out is Ryan is contacted by these guys, like mafioso type guys, basically saying that they have Anthony and they're holding him hostage and that they want so much money. And it seems odd right from the beginning on why they want so much money. Because where is Ryan going to come up with that kind of money? You know what I mean? Like that. But it just so happens that Ryan has a wealthy uncle because Ryan is Italian and half Italian. I think he's half Italian, right? And the wealthy uncle has an inheritance, but basically Ryan has to get married. So Ryan talks to his uncle and he says, well, I have a fiance. I'll bring my fiance. My girlfriend, I haven't asked her to marry me yet or whatever. Something like that. Anyway, it's actually pretty funny. So he asks Natalia for her help to find somebody, which is like, dude, just ask Natalia. You know what I mean? I'm like, ugh, these men. But it's really great how the whole thing unfolds. I don't want to say too much because it would give away the whole entire book. But let me tell you, they dance around each other and they dance around each other. Now, what I really liked about this particular book was it all, of course, leads to Anthony, who is an asshole. And Natalia's not the one in trouble. And Natalia's not the one. Ryan's the one in trouble in the end. And I loved that part of it. I liked the fact that it wasn't because of the girl. She was safe and sound. And so I really, really liked this book. And I mean, I like most of Brittney's books. I think she's a fantastic romantic suspense writer, and this book did not let me down. And it also connected, like I said, to the guys from the Stealth Ops series were connected in there because they were helping him out with the situation with his brother. So overall, yeah, I can't complain. I think it was a absolutely fantastic book, and I would highly recommend it. Along with all of her books, I think they're all fantastic. So now, the one thing I do want to say, and I think I may have said this before, I think that if you're going to read her books, you need to read them right from the very beginning. And the very beginning, the first group of books, I think there's 5 of them, because I still have one more to read, because I'm trying to finish off her backlist, and that is the Hidden Truths series, and it starts with Safe Bet, which is Michael Maddox's. I think Safe Bet is the first one, and that's Michael Maddox's story. So I would highly recommend, and the majority of her books you can get on Kindle Unlimited. So if you want to just try it, then you can just try it and you can go from there. I can honestly say her writing has just blossomed as you go through the series and you get further in. Like by the time you get to the Stealth Ops series, wow, so good. Because I think there's Hidden Truths, and there's a few, a smaller one, Becoming Us, and then there is what's the one? The Dublin Nights, which is based in Ireland. So then there's that series. And then you get into the Stealth Ops series, and it's like so freaking good from there. Anyway, yeah. So that was what I would recommend. I would not recommend necessarily reading this book until you've read. You have to read from the beginning, and you can actually go to her website, and she has her reading list, a recommended reading list, and just go with the recommended reading list and follow it from there. Okay, so that's the end of that one. Now we will get on to the next book that I'm going to read. Okay, so the next book that I read, this was a complete surprise to me. It's a shifter romance, paranormal romance. It's called A Luna's Revenge. I'll put it up here. Stone Mountain Shifters by Melanie Janes. Not a fancy cover. I don't think she is an overly, let's see, how many reviews does she have? Like, she only has 371 reviews, but almost a 4.0 rating, which I think is pretty good. What really got me, so it is kind of a typical sort of paranormal in one sense, and that is that Luna and her alpha husband finds his mate, I think, or was it a mate? I can't even remember if it was his mate, but no, he cheated on her. So he was cheating on her, and she left him. From there, she was pregnant, and it kind of goes from there. It's hard for me to tell you too much, because if I tell you too much, it's going to spoil it. But let's just say that there is a point in the story. So you're going through this story, right? And you think it's kind of going to resolve itself, but then it just flips, and holy shit. It's like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, what just happened? Oh my God. And the second half, so it's like first half, second half. And as you get into the second half of the story, I was just like, wow, right? So I rated this pretty high because I couldn't get over how the author did that. Like, it was just amazing how she managed to do this. It's a dream sequence time shift type book. There is very little, while it's a romance, there's very little sexual content in it. I would say 1 or even 0.5. I mean, very, very little, almost none. There is mental health struggles. Now, this was the other thing that I thought was really interesting about what she did with this. It's a shifter romance, but it has, while it has some of the typical tropes of a wolf shifter romance, it deals with certain things like the cheating aspect and the rejection aspect, and also as a mental health issue. And I thought that was really interesting because I've never read anything like that before in this kind of shifter book. And so it really kind of caught me off guard. And I enjoyed that. I always enjoy a shifter romance that does not follow along the typical tropes, because sometimes it's just very, it gets boring, like if it's the same thing over and over and over again. This did not. This turned a lot of things on its head and definitely was very, very different on how it approached it. And then, of course, the whole time shift thing and everything like that was just, wow, so good. Yeah. And she has 2 more of the series. And they're characters that appeared in this first book, which, makes you invested in the characters and you want to know their story and what happened to them. And I think those are coming out in 2025 this summer, somewhere and around there. And I will definitely try. I hope they don't disappoint because the first one was so, so good. Now we're on to my favorite book of the batch. And I would say potentially my favorite book of the month. Now, I say that, well, I loved Caliban's War. That was my favorite book from my mid-month wrap-up, mid-March wrap-up. But I think I liked this more. And let me tell you why I think I liked this more. Obviously, I tabbed it quite a bit. I think it's because it was the end of a great series, a series that I thoroughly enjoyed. Okay. Now, when I picked up this book, I was a little worried, if I'm going to be honest, because a lot of people I watch have read this, didn't like it. Now, they didn't hate it. I think very many people were like middle of the road with it. And now, one person I follow religiously is Bree at 4 Paws in a Book. And she really liked this. And now I will tell you, she also really liked Death by Fire. And I did enjoy that. But she did really like the 3rd book. So I thought, well, that gives me hope. Out of the 3 books, it's my favorite. And I'm not going to lie. The first one, I didn't even quite give 5 stars. I think it was 4 or 4.5 stars, something along those lines. And then the 2nd book, I totally loved that book, thoroughly enjoyed it, top tier. This one, like, way better. I think this is like one of those ones that you say you'd give it 6 stars. I mean, that's how much I loved this book. And I think it's because it had all of the characters tied up in things. Now, I can see where people might not have liked it. And that is because there were a lot of characters. So that's number 1. But I think it built up to that in the 2nd book. Number 2, everything was broken up quite a bit. So you would get one person's point of view, then you get the next person's point of view, and the next person, and that would be in one chapter. So it wasn't necessarily, the point of views weren't necessarily split by chapter. They were split up within the chapters. But it all made sense because it was all following a time sequence. So to me, it was okay, right? And the thing is that you'd get a little anxious because she'd stop you at a certain point on, say, something that was happening with Bryce, and then you'd get to something that was happening with Hunt, and it was getting really, really like rough with Hunt, and then it would flip to somebody else, and I'd be like, fuck. And so, but what that does is it makes you want to read. Yeah, let's read. And then something's happening to the next person, then something's happening. I freaking loved it. Like, absolutely, 100% loved it. And I loved the fact that when you got to the end, you could have had a whole new set of stories start at the end, because there were still things that were unresolved. And that's only because I don't want to say anything. Yeah. So, it was kind of crazy. Now, I have not read any of her other books. So, I had no idea the significance of Nesta and Azrael and Rysand. No idea. And I don't know if maybe that was better, because they were just new characters that were introduced right at the beginning to me, because I didn't know who they were. Okay. So they are apparently characters from ACOTAR series. And I had no clue. And I liked the fact that I kind of had no clue. I just kind of went into it and I was like, oh, I really like that. So that maybe was a bit of a spoiler, but I don't want to give terms. But that's right at the very beginning of the book. What ended up happening for me was I'm in the beginning and I'm reading through this and I'm thinking, hang on, these characters seem familiar. And it's only because, of course, I watch a lot of reviews and I hear a lot of people talk about Sarah J. Maas's books. And so I went in and I actually looked it up. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get what's going on here. Anyway, it was so good. And what really, really was the best part of the book was how all the friends came together. Like, really, really came together and supported you. Like, it was just fantastic. Now, I'm going to say, this is a bit of a spoiler, okay? Little tiny bit. So, you don't want to hear this part. Okay, this is like, I can't remember where this occurred in the book. Yeah, so in around 275 pages. Okay. Right around that point, Bryce teleports into a place and she ends up being in her father's house. And her father is a nasty fae king guy, right? The Autumn King. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that transpires between her and her father. It's over a short period, but all transpire. But how it ends is Bryce ends up locking him in a closet. Okay? It is hilarious to me because she just screwed him perfectly. It was just what she did and how she did it, because you don't know this is going on. Like, when it's leading up to this, you don't know this is what's happening because you think she ended up there by accident. And that's all I'm going to say. End of spoiler. Okay. Yeah, so finished the book. Kind of sad that I'm finished the series, and couldn't have ended off March in a better way, to be perfectly honest. It was, yeah, well worth reading. It was funny because I was reading this and I was reading The Veiled Kingdom along, because I always, I usually read something on my e-reader at the same time that I'm reading something in print. They're not never the same book. I'm always reading two different books. And this was so good, and The Veiled Kingdom was so average. And maybe that's why I just kind of felt like it was, because this was just so good. I was having such a good time with this book. Long read, but I actually read it quite a bit in the Realmathon sprints while they were doing the sprinting during the competition, and I used that to read through this because it is a very long read. It's 835 pages, I think. Yeah, 835. big book. Every page was worth it. Okay, so that is everything that I have read in the month of March. Now, if you want to see my mid-March review, I will leave a link to it below. I will also leave a link to my April TBR because I did put that video out so you can see everything that I'm planning to read in April. I have a lot smaller list of books. This was a total. So I read in March the most books that I have ever read, and I only had 2 DNFs out of all of this. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17 books. This is the most books I've ever read in a month. And I mean, I do usually have the odd DNF in a month. So I think I did a pretty damn good job. And of course, all of the books that I read were entered into the competition for points. You get points on everything. And I just got so many friggin' points on House of Flame and Shadow, because it just fits so many slots, right? And yeah, so it earned me a ton of points. So overall, it was a great reading month. And I'm looking forward to kind of a little bit quieter in April. And then in May, I think I'm going to be doing another readathon. It's going to be for the month of May, another competition style readathon. Really enjoyed it. It just kind of really pushes you. But the one in May, I'm going to, it's probably going to be Lexi's readathon. And she does a lot of thriller and horror. That's kind of what her channel is more about. And so I'm going to try to stick to mostly that. I do have a couple of fantasy that are going to go in there, but not a ton. So anyways, that'll be for me. So that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed these reviews. I try to do my best and not forget the details, but you know, I don't remember everything. I'm old. I use that as my excuse. I do remember the ones that I really enjoyed though. And you can be sure that I will be remembering Crescent City for a very, very long time. All right, we will see you in the next video.